Hello neighbors, it's Brad here from etrailer, and today we are taking a look at installing the CURT Trailer Hitch Receiver on a 2025 Nissan Pathfinder. And adding a trailer hitch to really any vehicle is a great addition. It really opens up the real estate that you previously didn't have with your vehicle. So if you're taking bikes out on an adventure or loading up some extra cargo on a cargo carrier, or maybe even pulling a trailer for some jobs around the house, this is going to be the first step that you're going to want to add. And the CURT one is a great option. So let's take a closer look at it and see what it has to offer. Now, many times people are worried about the way that it's going to look when it's installed on their vehicle, but the CURT does a really good job of being a hidden cross tube and making it a clean look. Really, the only thing you're going to see when installed is going to be the 2" by 2" receiver tube opening and the safety chains. And that 2" by 2" is going to be the standard size when it comes to trailer hitch receivers. So if you're picking out a bike rack, a cargo carrier, or a ball mount, you're going to have tons of options available. Now, all of those accessories will stay in place with a 5/8 pin and clip. Now, this is not included with the hitch, but many times when you pick up accessories, they'll have one included, sometimes even some nice anti-rattle ones that are specific to that product. But if you plan on leaving a bike rack or a cargo carrier on maybe for a season, or you're out of town on vacation with that, you do want to make sure that no one's going to be able to just walk away with it. So looking at a locking pin and clip becomes a really good deterrent for people like that. So it might be worthwhile picking up. Now, if you're going to be pulling a trailer, you're going to be hooking up safety chains, and our rolled style safety chain loops are nice and open. So a standard S hook is going to be no problem. The same goes for a large or small clevis hook. You can see can go on there with no issues. And speaking of towing, you're going to want to adhere to the weight capacities not only of the hitch, but also what the vehicle's rated to tow. Many times people think, well, my hitch is rated that means I can tow that much, and that's not always the case. Your vehicle may not be rated for the transmission to handle it, the suspension, or the drivetrain in general. So it is definitely worthwhile taking a look at the vehicle's owner's manual and then comparing that number with the hitch and taking the lower one. That way you're not overloading anything in the process and you're staying safe. But as far as capacities on this hitch, they're rated pretty well. Our gross trailer weight rating is coming in at 6,000 pounds, and that's the weight of the trailer plus the accessories that you'll be towing. So definitely a good rating there. The tongue weight is really impressive at 900 pounds, and that's the downward pressure on the inside of the receiver tube opening, and really accounts for a lot of your suspended accessories like cargo carriers and bike racks. So what does that mean for you? 900 pounds? A 4x bike rack isn't going to even scratch that surface. A cargo carrier loaded up on vacation shouldn't be a problem. I really don't worry that you're going to go over that weight rating. But again, if you are towing, make sure that you're staying underneath that 6,000 or whatever the vehicle is rated for. Now, this can be used with a weight distribution hitch, and that's really good for hauling some larger trailers. It's going to get everything nice and level and just be a better towing experience. And sometimes a weight distribution hitch can bump up capacity numbers on the hitch. That's not the case here. You can use one, but the numbers are going to stay exactly the same at 6,000 pounds for your gross trailer weight rating and 900 for the tongue weight. Now, some bike racks and cargo carriers can be stowed in a vertical position, and sometimes trailer hitch receivers sit too far back or the fascia sticks out too far to where those can't stow. On this one, I don't worry too much because measuring from the center of our hitch pin hole to the furthest point up, it's maybe about 3 inches, so I really don't worry that you're going to have any issues there. But keep in mind, when they're folded up, you're going to be blocking your license plate, your backup camera, and also your hatch will not be able to open unless you fold those down. Minor in the grand scheme of things, but something to keep in mind. Another important measurement is going to be our ground clearance, and this one's coming in at 16 inches. And that's from the top of the receiver tube opening to the ground. This is going to be really important for choosing the right ball mount if you're planning on pulling a trailer. You want it as level as possible going down the road for the best towing experience. And the best way to do that is if you have your trailer available, get it level, measure from the ground to the top of the coupler, take that measurement, and then you can compare it with this hitch measurement and then determine that rise or drop necessary. Now, depending on trailer, it's going to vary, but more than likely this is going to be either a straight shank or a slight rise if I was to guess. It again depends on the trailer, but if you want to not have to worry about getting it perfect, you could always get an adjustable ball mount, and that way you can cover a whole spread, especially if you're going to be pulling a bunch of different trailers. Now, you're probably on this video because you want to see what it takes to get this installed, and I'm here to tell you this one's pretty easy to do. If you've never installed a hitch before, this one is not that difficult. There's a few steps involved that are going to include lowering down your spare tire, taking off isolators on your exhaust to give you a little bit of clearance, and then there is a little bit of trimming just to make sure that this slides up in place and has clearance for it. But beyond that, you're really just going to be raising up the hitch and threading in bolts to the weld nuts that are already in the frame. So pretty easy overall. You do probably want an extra set of hands to raise that up. It'll make it a lot easier. And something you may not have that you're going to want to get is a torque wrench. And that's going to make sure that we have everything tightened down properly. But beyond that, none of this is terribly difficult and can be done in your driveway or garage. Give yourself maybe an hour, somewhere in that range, and it shouldn't be a problem. But if you watch this whole video and decide throughout the installation, you know what, I don't want to tackle that. I don't have a lift. I don't feel like, getting my tools out. I don't have the time, the place, the want, any of it. I understand, but having a hitch is really, really nice, for utilizing your vehicle. So if the installation's scaring you off, don't let that be a problem. You can use our dealer locator to find someone close to you to get it installed for you. You'll simply put in your zip code. You'll find a list of shops close to you that can tackle the install and also any other accessory you may want, whether it be trailer wiring, maybe some suspension enhancements, whatever it may be. Either way, you don't have to worry about the install and you can be out on the road enjoying it. But if you are a DIYer and going to be tackling this yourself, stick around. Let's get your hitch installed. To begin our installation, the first thing we're going to want to do is lower down our spare tire. That's going to give us space to raise up our hitch eventually. So to do that, if you've never lowered down your spare tire on your Pathfinder, it's actually pretty easy. You'll open up your rear hatch, and in this compartment, you're going to find that there's this circle knob. We'll just quarter turn that, and that's going to give us access to this large nut, which goes to a cable system that'll lower down the tire. Now, you don't need any special tools here because you can just use your factory tire wrench. So just kind of loosening this up, we have our tool bag here. And we should be able to grab our wrench and get this all lowered down. Now, in the toolkit, there's a lot of tools here, but the best way to do this is if you get this adapter and you put this on, you can grab this T-handle. This will slide in. So you'll just put the one end here, and then if you grab your tire wrench, you can use this to rotate it down. Now, when we get our hitch raised up, eventually we're going to be having it sliding underneath the muffler and we'll be tightening down the hardware. So to make this a lot easier to get all of our tools up there and feeding the hardware up, we are going to lower down the muffler. It's pretty easy to do with this isolator. So what I recommend doing is prying off the top one here. And a lot of times what I'll do is just grab a pry bar. And you can use the exhaust hanger as leverage. So if you can kind of get behind this and just work this out. This one has grease on it, which is kind of interesting, maybe from the factory, but this should make it a little bit easier to pop off. But if it is fighting you, what you can do is put a little silicone spray or soapy water, and that'll help make it easier to pop off and to put it back on later. Now, we are going to pop off the one on our rear cross member as well. That should give us a little bit of wiggle room. And we have another hanger that's kind of further up. So this is going to support itself. So once we pop this off, just be aware it can drop a little bit. So this one, same thing, we'll just pry off our isolator. Again, you can use that rear subframe as leverage, but well, my whole thing came off, which is fine. We'll just put that back on later. So at this point though, you can see this will be enough for us to move it around to be able to get everything in place. And before we raise our hitch up, we are going to have to make a little bit of clearance for it on this lower part of the fascia. And it's just a small amount that we'll have to trim out, but our receiver is going to sit right here. So we need to cut this out before we raise the hitch up, otherwise it's not going to fit. So I've taped this out. There's measurements in the instruction manual that you can follow. The painter's tape is a nice visual representation, but it also gives you nice clean lines to follow. And as far as cutting, really whatever you have handy that's you're comfortable using for cutting, so whether it be a Dremel, angle grinder, you could use a utility knife if you take your time. I like using an oscillating tool or a multi-tool. These make really clean lines and it's easy to get this cut out. So speaking of that, let's get this cut out and then we can come back and file anything down that might be rough. Now with that cut out, you may have some burrs, and if that's the case, you can take a file to it, or even just a putty knife or a flat blade. You can run that across there just to clean it up a little bit, because this is going to be the finished product. Every time you hook something up to your hitch, you want to make sure it's nice and clean. So take the time, we'll get this all cleaned up, and now's a good time to also grab an extra set of hands so we can get this hitch raised up. Now with your extra set of hands, what I recommend doing is having one bolt at least ready with a conical tooth washer. The teeth are going to bite into the hitch on the metal, so just make sure you have it in this configuration. As we raise this up, we'll try to get one started on each side, just a few threads. It'll make it a lot easier to get the rest of the hardware up while this is supported. So I have Chaston here, he's helping me raise up the hitch. So as we kind of align this up with those holes, we're going to get the easiest one possible. Now where we trimmed out, just make sure that slides in place, and this should align pretty easily. So I'll get my threads started here. And these are pretty fine threads, so just take your time here until you can get it started. And once you have the one side started, if you want to, you can go ahead and get the rest of the hardware started as well. And once you get all your hardware started by hand, we're going to grab a 19mm socket and we're going to snug it all down. You don't need to get crazy here because we're going to come back with a torque wrench to get it perfectly dialed in, but we do want to draw this up. Something I will recommend is make sure that this is nice and centered up. So the holes are slotted. There's not a ton of movement, but it's enough to where you'll be able to see it. So line this up perfectly before snugging it down, and we'll just buzz all these down. And once everything's snugged down, we'll just come back with that same socket and our torque wrench. The torque settings are in the instruction manual, and torque wrenches do a really good job of making sure it's perfectly tight, and especially with weld nuts, it's really easy to overdo it and potentially cause stress to that long term that might not be good. But this will make sure that it's tight enough to tow a trailer down the road. So if you need a torque wrench, you can ask one of your neighbors to see if they have one, because really all you need it for is these 6 bolts. But if you can't find one, you can always go to an auto parts store and rent one for free. But we'll get these all torqued down, and we'll be looking good. And once you have those all properly torqued, you've officially installed your hitch. All that's left to do is get our exhaust isolators put back in place, our spare tire put back in place, load up your accessory, put in your pin and clip, and then you're ready to hit the road. Hopefully this video was helpful in getting the hitch installed on your Pathfinder. And if I was helpful, leave us a comment. That really makes me feel like I did a good job. But also if there's something I missed or something that could have been more helpful if I included, also leave that comment. It really helps us dial in our videos to make them as best as possible for neighbors like you. They're going to be tackling a job like this at home. With that being said, thanks for joining us for a look and installation of the CURT Trailer Hitch Receiver on a 2025 Nissan Pathfinder.